set to be a historic day on Capitol Hill, with Democrats poised to unveil articles of impeachment. But there's a lot of confusion surrounding the process and how it works. Here's what it actually means to be impeached. First, impeachment doesn't mean removing a high-ranking official from office. It's actually the process when a legislative body makes charges against a government official. Think of it like an indictment in a criminal case. Next, while the House of Representatives can impeach a president, it's actually the Senate who holds the trial. It would be the Senate that convicts, like a jury in a criminal case. But that's never happened. Both Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton were impeached, tried, and stayed in office. Finally, the reason that's never happened: it's really tough. It takes 67 of 100 senators to vote to remove the president from office. So that would mean 20 Republican senators would have to vote along with all of the Democrats to force President Trump from office. You can read more about the process and watch today's announcement from the Democrats on KHOU.com and the KHOU 11 News app.